Tonight, we feature moderator Mark B. Perry. And with the next generation of fans, guests Amanda Desiree, Madelyn Marks, and Aleah Shockley.
Thank you very much. We're going to dive right into this, and we're going to be as efficient as we possibly can. Nobody hogs the stage, nobody hijacks the microphone. We're just going to go right ahead. So, first question I'd like to ask you. I'm a first generation fan, and I love the fact that there are all these new fans, as I like to call you, Gen Next. And so here's my first question. How and when did Dark Shadows enter your life? How old were you when you first found it, and what do you love about it? And we'll just work down the road, if that's all right. Yeah.
So, I know this is going to be a little bit unpopular with the room, but my first exposure to Dark Shadows was, in fact, the 2012 film. I was about 11 when it came out, so it's okay, you can boo, it's all right. Don't worry about it. Yeah, it was several years later that I discovered the original series. I was in college, I was in Zoom school. My mom was watching reruns in the middle of the night on Decades TV. And she asked me to sit down with her and start it from the very beginning on streaming. So I remembered vaguely, very vaguely, the 2012 film involving, you know, ghosts, vampires, witches, other spooky things of that nature. And I thought, well, yeah, I think I would like, you know, Dark Shadows. So I sat down with her. It was not about any of that. It was about, you know, two siblings and it got the cows and, you know, other stuff. And I thought, well, I'll keep watching until the vampire shows up at least. And I didn't stop watching. We watched the whole thing, all, you know, 1,225 episodes. And I kept watching and kept watching and kept watching. So, as for what I love about it, so I come from a theater background, and what I really love about it more than, you know, the characters are great, the ambiance is great, you know, the plots are great, but more than anything else, I really like it in the way that the content reveals the form, so you can really see, you know, all of the making, all of the, you know, the bloopers, but also the really quick production turnover, all of the, you know, the actors coming from a background of theater, getting to watch the different episodes and seeing the marks of the different directors, making their impact on the show. It's really interesting to watch, you know, to watch that much content in a row, and to just really get to immerse yourself in the world of, you know, New York theater actors in the 60s making this crazy soap opera. And, you know, I love the Collinses, of course. So.
And here you are.
And here I am.
My mother was someone who ran home from school to watch the series, and she told me about it when I was a kid because I was really interested in the supernatural. I read lots of true ghost stories. I loved the Universal monster movies. She said, oh, you would have really liked this show called Dark Shadows that I used to watch. It had vampires and witches and werewolves, and they would go back in time. And sometimes the set would fall down and people would forget their lines, but they just kept going with it. It sounded really interesting, but I didn't get to see it right away because the show was airing on Sci-Fi Channel and our cable package didn't have it. We went on vacation when I was 12, and we actually stayed at a hotel that did have the Sci-Fi Channel, so I got to see a couple of episodes, and she pointed out the characters. Barnabas is the vampire, Julia is his friend, Angelique is his wife. Those episodes were from 1840, I later found out. But I didn't get to watch the series in earnest until I was a freshman in high school a few years later. I started with the episode where Barnabas kills Jason McGuire. So they're already underway in the supernatural world. My dad would tape the show during the week because it was on super early in the day where we live. I think it's at 5 in the morning. And I played the whole tape in 5 hours worth. There were 2 episodes a day running then. I'd play it on the weekend and I did my mountains of homework. And for one, it was just background noise. The show wasn't really gripping me. But when they went back to 1795, everything became revitalized. The actors were playing new roles. They were really into their characters. The characters were fresh. They had beautiful costumes, a fantastic plot. And I found myself looking up at the screen more often, not looking at my work, really wanting to watch the show and getting pulled in. And I got to attend my first festival here in LA down the street at the Marriott about a couple of years after I started watching, when I was really anxious to be a part of the world of Dark Shadows, because I didn't know anybody else who had watched it or who knew about it. So I really loved having the opportunity to meet other fans and get to share my love of Dark Shadows.
Well, my mother was also the gateway for me for Dark Shadows, which seems to be the unifying experience for all of us. My very first exposure or knowledge of the show came from when I was about 10 years old. My mom, who had been one of the people who ran home from school originally, but had been a very, very casual fan. She managed to find a VHS tape of it at a garage sale or something, and she said, "Oh, this is something I used to like. Do you want to watch it with me? It's a soap opera." And I remember thinking, I don't want to watch a soap opera. That's dumb. And, you know, nothing happened for about 2 years until I joined a history club through school, and we went on a field trip to Tarrytown and to Lyndhurst, and I fell in love with the house, and they mentioned the Dark Shadows movies, and my mom said, "Oh, let's get them," because she wanted to revisit her nostalgia, and I wanted to see more of the house. And it absolutely captivated me, and it was an instant hook, and I found that the soap opera aspect of it was the biggest captivating factor for me, because I was not into horror at all before this point, and that's what drew me in, the thing that I thought was really stupid and not worth my time. Woo!
So, all of you are involved in some kind of artistic endeavors, and you also have your day jobs, your real life. I'm really curious to know if Dark Shadows has had any influence on your professional work and your creative work, and if so, in what way?
Yeah, so it's really not an exaggeration to say that Dark Shadows really made me fall in love with art again and drawing again. I really didn't draw for my own pleasure all throughout college. That was something I did growing up in middle school and high school, and then it kind of got put, to the wayside. And, after I finished the series and it was just percolating in my brain, I got really involved in drawing. I learned how to make GIFs, I learned how to make videos, I made playlists. I just everything. And so my art really evolved as a result. I got involved in a lot of other creative projects connected to the rest of the fandom. Catherine Gonzalez makes her own music, so I illustrated several of her album covers for her. I did the cover for the latest edition of Our Shadowed Past with Bob Issel. And then, yes, please, clap. My latest project, if you went to the luncheon, you got a postcard for this, the Collins Family album, which is written by Rich Handley. I did a collection of family portraits for it, for all the Dark Shadows, iterations, from the original series, the 91, the Ross novels, the comics, the Broadway production in 88. So all the different the Collins families throughout the history of the franchise is my latest, connection to the fandom. But yeah, it's really brought my art, maybe not back to life, back to undead. Yeah.
Well played.
I can't say Dark Shadows has ever played a role in any of my jobs, but I did publish a novel back in 2021 called Smithy. It's about thank you. It's about a group of university researchers raising a chimpanzee in a house and teaching him sign language. It's based in part on a true story. But in my version, the house has a reputation for being haunted, and the chimp starts to use sign language to communicate with the ghost. I chose to set my book in Newport, Rhode Island, after spending time in the city and visiting Seaview Terrace. So that house in my book does draw from architectural features and historical aspects of Seaview Terrace, and I have scattered some Dark Shadows references throughout the book, mostly names of people involved in the show or names of characters, so people reading the book might get a kick out of that. I also published a nonfiction book, The Dark Shadows Event Diary. This is a collection of reports I wrote throughout all the years that I was attending festivals and other Dark Shadows events. Before YouTube, before live streaming, the only way you would find out what was going on at a festival was from people who would write about it online. So I would write as much detail as I could remember about the panels, about the performances, anything that went on at the festival, and post those on message boards and mailing lists, whatever was around at the turn of the century. So I put those all together so people who either haven't had the chance to go to a festival of their own or who missed some of those festivals would get to read about it. So this is another way that I expressed my love of Dark Shadows and Dark Shadows conventions.
I'm the odd one out here because I do industrial manufacturing for a living, so I do not get a chance to express my love of Dark Shadows at the factory at all. But my biggest endeavor was that I spent a couple years working on a Lego set diorama of the foyer and the drawing room, which I had displayed out here for the past 2 days, and I'm currently working on the mausoleum and the old house, which I will hopefully have at future events, so watch out for that. What's
We'll
that?
have a working secret door.
You know it does. Absolutely. Yeah, Dark Shadows has been one of my biggest creative outlets to express myself, whether that's through Legos, using my technical skills to make things like that, or through things like, I made some playlists and other things like that in my own spare time.
Dark Shadows is very adaptable to all this sort of thing. We're going to do what I call a lightning round, and we're going to talk storylines. And I'm just going to tell you the storyline, and you say yay or nay or favorite. If I happen to name your favorite storyline. All right? Okay, first one. The BB episodes.
What episodes?
Before Barnabas.
Oh, yay! Favorites. Yeah.
Nay, because I still haven't seen them.
That's an NA. That's good.
And NA, there we go. That's
Doesn't
the
apply.
answer.
Okay. Barnabas is freed from his coffin and plots kidnappings and murders.
Yay.
Yay. Yay.
We love Dark Shadows. The show's operatic gothic horror love triangle 1795.
Yay.
Yay, almost favorite.
Favorite.
All right, we have a winner. Maybe the most controversial, the Leviathan.
Yay.
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 And there you have the next generation of Dark Shadows fans. Well done. All right, another kidnapper of women, Adam.
Nay.
Nay.
Okay. Now we come to the show's rating zenith, 1897.
Yay.
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 Okay, we love Dark Shadows. And then finally, the last one, and then we'll go on to something else. When Collinwood Got Groovy, Parallel Time, 1970.
Yay, I love Parallel Roger.
Yay.
Nay.
Oh! All right, I know this isn't about me, but Damian Edwards is the coolest, swankiest ghost to ever haunt Hollywood. All right, so enough of that. Anyone in the audience have a question for our panelists? Yes, sir.
We got one favorite from Madelyn. What are your other two favorites?
My favorite is the Laura Collins arc in 1967.
Ooh, that's good.
And that is also my favorite. It's still a time when there's a lot of traditional soap opera storytelling, but you see the incursion of supernatural elements, and it's done in a very elegant way, a very subtle way, and those episodes are so atmospheric. I love them.
Yeah, it's very psychoanalytic, very Freudian, and I like that a lot.
You young people have really good taste. Okay. Dark Shadows is now 60 years old. and very much a product of its time. Which themes or characters feel the most ahead of their time, either emotionally, morally, or in the way they're written?
So something that, this is kind of spanning a lot of the series, but something I think was really ahead of the 60s is its real wholehearted critique of marriage for women. I think there's a lot of like instances, you know, starting from the very beginning, you know, with Elizabeth ends up imprisoned in her own house because of her husband, but all the way through, you know, Daphne, the threat of marriage is looming over her. Vicky gets married and she immediately dies. You know, there's this ongoing theme of like, you know, marriage is really this death knell for women, and it's kind of pushing back on, you know, the previous, certainly the 50s, but even other shows of the 60s. You know, the Dick Van Dyke show I would say is very, very pro-marriage. And other 60s shows, Bewitched would maybe make an even better comparison, is really pushing the nuclear family. And Dark Shadows certainly is not. It's certainly pushing back against, you know, marriage as the end-all be-all for women, and that feels really, really ahead of its time for me.
A character that I think feels very modern is David Collins, especially in the pre-Barnabas or the BB era, as you refer to it. He's clearly disturbed, and that's not something that you see a lot of at that period in television. Children are usually very, very sweet, very innocent. And he is not. He actively tries to kill multiple people, and he gets away with it. But there's also a backstory about why he's so disturbed. He had a dysfunctional family growing up. A lot of issues in David's life seem to reflect what we would now look at as oppositional defiance disorder. I mean, today this kid would be on medications up the wazoo, but not then. So it was a very entertaining portrayal because it was so distinct, and I really feel that David is the most modern character, pre-Barnabas David.
For me, one of the most modern characters would be Jeb, in the ways that he wants to be or exist in a different way than the way that he was created. And this is still a very controversial topic right now. As far as the transgender, the transsexual movement, and the fact that it discusses those themes and actually shows Jeb appearing to beat the odds and succeed in becoming the human being that he wants to be, despite the fact that everyone says it shouldn't be possible. He wants it so bad that he makes it possible, and the kind of the bodily autonomy that is displayed not only in Jeb, but in a lot of other characters, especially Barnabas, that feels very ahead of its time.
Very good. Question, which is the opposite. It's from a contemporary sensibility, what characters or themes haven't aged well?
So I do feel like the most obvious, maybe cheat answer is, you know, the brown face that happens in 1897. And I think we can all three probably agree on that one. So I kind of want to go, you know, one more because I feel like I'm going to be cheating if I take that one. I would say the portrayal of women, I think, has a degradation over time. Liz and Vicky and Carolyn all start as like very interesting, independent women with their own thoughts and motivations. Julia starts as a character with her own thoughts and motivations, and kind of over time they get a little bit more surface level. Their motivations become solely their romantic interests, and that I think kind of makes me wince every time I watch, you know, the whole series start to finish, to see, you know, these women that started so interesting and maybe less so by the time they went off the show.
I would agree with that point. I fear I'm going to alienate people by saying this. I had a real problem watching Julia because she's often upheld by original viewers as a strong woman, a modern woman, but I get hung up on the retrogressive aspects of her character, her emotionality. She's almost hysterical whenever something frightening happens. And it's Julia, it's not Grayson Hall. You don't see that behavior in Natalie or in Magda or in her other roles. Also, she was a professional woman at a time when a woman would really have to fight to have a career, and yet she seems to give it all up to hang out at Collinwood and be at Barnabas's beck and call. And I found that very frustrating, her deferring to Barnabas. I saw her more as a doormat than a strong woman, and that may be my image of what a strong woman is supposed to be, and her not fully reflecting that.
Those are both very good answers, and I don't have much more than I can add, because I was really struggling. Some of these questions we've given ahead of time, and I was really struggling to come up with an answer to this beyond the obvious brown face for the Romani characters in 1897, because that's a very surface level, pun intended, complaint. I believe those characters are underneath that very well developed and very respected by the narrative. It's just unfortunate the way that they were cast or portrayed. And I think that part of the reason why I like it as a new fan is because there is not a lot of things that would turn off modern viewers as far as difficult to approach things.
Interesting. Yeah.
But I do think that these are both very good points, and especially Julia, with the ways that she is very influenced by second wave feminism and some of the reasons why we move past second wave feminism.
Very good. I'm going to change it up a bit. When I was a kid, watching it first running home from school, I'm that guy. We had a community. All of our friends were watching Dark Shadows. And we were watching it in real time. So we were all watching the same show at the same time. And our interaction was on the school bus, in the cafeteria, the playground, in the neighborhood. And we would talk about Dark Shadows. Did you see, oh, it was really cool, you did that woman on the donuts and all, you know, all this. So I'm curious, when you come to it through streaming or the DVDs or however, outside of the festival settings, how do you connect with other Dark Shadows fans? And how did joining the fan community, which you're all three very involved in, I mean, you checked us in, you gave us our parking validation, and I couldn't catch you, you were so busy yesterday. So how did joining the fan community shape your relationship with the series?
I mean, I connect with the fan community, I would say, every single day of my life. Some of my best friends I met through Dark Shadows. My best friend, whose name is also Maggie, coincidentally, her real name, I met because of our, you know, I kind of introduced her to Dark Shadows unwittingly. And now she's here, stuck here with me. Yeah, so I think we heard a lot about the history of the fandom and, you know, coming to the conventions throughout the years and the fanzines and connecting. I came to Dark Shadows in the 2020s, so my fandom community is all online for the most part. You know, Madelyn has the Discord, I interact a lot on Tumblr, or I know people from Blue Sky. After I started coming to the conventions, I joined Facebook, became a lot more active on there. It's a very strong part of my social life, which might not necessarily be a good thing.
It's a great thing. No, don't go there, don't go there. No self-loathing among Dark Shadows.
I'm kidding. I mean, it's great. I get to meet so many amazing people. And then there was a second part of that question that I've gotten away from. What was the last part of the question?
The last part of the question was, how did joining the fan community shape your relationship with the series?
I think, let's see. I think it's given me appreciation for characters that I never would have had an appreciation for otherwise. I mean, the case that stands out to me most is Burke Devlin. I did not like Burke Devlin the first time I watched it, which, you know, now, like, I love Burke Devlin. But no, it took another fans, you know.
And every other woman in Collinsport.
Wow. He is very square. He's very, you know, he's got the, you know.
He's got the Jack Palance thing.
But I mean, yeah, just generally, I think everyone, I think I can almost say this as a generalization. Everyone has their character that they attach onto. So when you meet other fans and you hear their input, you know, Jeb is another great one. I didn't like Jeb all that much until I met you and I heard your analyses on Jeb. So it really, I mean, it makes you know, you watch it and you have certain things that you latch on to and, you know, really pay attention to. And then meeting the other fans, you gain such a greater appreciation for all these other characters, all these other approaches or frames of viewing that you never would have had if you hadn't connected with other fans.
When I started watching Dark Shadows, I didn't know anybody else who was watching it or who really knew about it. My mother had watched it, and sometimes she'd stick her head in when I had it on, but we didn't sit and talk about it. And I desperately wanted a community where I could discuss the show and what was going to happen next. So I turned to the internet, which was still a fairly new thing in the early 2000s, and that was a big step for me because I'm a technophobe, but I got an email address. I started joining message boards and mailing lists. Chat rooms were still fairly new, but I was in a couple of well-moderated chat rooms. So because Sci-Fi Channel was still airing the series at that time, I got to participate in fandom in real time in that way. People would watch the show and then talk about that day's episode in the message boards or that week's episodes in the chat room. So I did have a virtual community around me that I got to experience the show with. I can't imagine what it's like watching it piecemeal at home on YouTube or Amazon or wherever it's airing. I would have to say all my friends are from Dark Shadows in some way or another. It's like Victoria says in her opening monologue, this show has opened the doors of life to me. I got my first job through a Dark Shadows fan. I met my first boyfriend through a Dark Shadows fan. All the good things that have happened to me in life somehow seem to trace back to Dark Shadows, so that fan community has had a huge impact on me in that way. As far as how it's enriched my appreciation of the series, as you said, hearing other people defend their favorite characters or analyze the series gave me a deeper understanding and a different appreciation of characters that I either disliked or maybe didn't care about in the beginning. I would also have to say that Dark Shadows fans are very well informed. I got so many recommendations for books and stories and movies that were related to Dark Shadows in some way, maybe as an inspiration for the show or as something that was in the same vein. And spreading out to these other media also helped me to enjoy Dark Shadows more.
Well, Mark, I'm going to answer the second part of your question first. Because how did Dark Shadows, or how did the fandom shape my... Can you read it again for me?
How did joining the fan community shape your relationship with the series?
So when I found out, or when I first watched House of Dark Shadows and I took the trip to Lyndhurst, that was in the summer, the very early summer of 2011. And we managed to find out about, my mother and I, found out about the conventions, and she decided that it would be fun, and I was also interested that we should go to one. So I ended up going to my very first Dark Shadows convention less than 2 months after I had watched my first episode of the show. And the camaraderie and the fact that everyone felt like family and the sheer amount of joy that I saw at these conventions really made me fall in love with the show more than I would have if I had just been watching it on my own. I was a very introverted child, and I didn't have a lot of close relatives and family in the area, so this was the first time that I felt like I had an extended family gathering type of situation. And it was very much instrumental in cementing my love of the show. So I don't think I would be here if I hadn't gone to that convention in 2011. And what was the first part of the question again?
First part of the question is, outside of festival settings, how do you connect with other fans?
Yeah, so I, outside of the festivals, I joined Tumblr.com, and because there was a lot of other young fans, my own age, like high school age fans on Tumblr. And I knew about the message boards, and I was poking around the message boards, but it was all adults. And Tumblr was the only place that I had found multiple other people my own age talking about the show, and that was kind of my place. And I'm still on Tumblr, I'm still active with Dark Shadows on Tumblr, and then I ended up in college kind of adopting a Discord server for the show. which now has around 150 members, and many of them are under 30 or under 40, and they're second or third generation fans. And that's how I stay connected with the fan community outside of the conventions.
That's great. I'm getting the restaurant lightning round. And this is, we're talking character, we're not talking actor. All right? Sexiest character on Dark Shadows. Go.
Roger Collins.
Kendrick Young.
Quentin. 1897 Quentin.
And I'll keep mine to myself because I'm not on the panel. I do have one more question and then we'll wrap it up, I promise. And that is, it's a selfish question. You are the next generation of Dark Shadows fans. You will be carrying that torch with the angry mob to keep this alive, all right? And as the next generation of Dark Shadows fans, what would you like to see in a next generation live action series?
So I think you said, Mark, on your interview with Danielle Penny Dreadful, that I did my homework. You can't really do Dark Shadows, I think, without Barnabas. But something else that you said that I really appreciated is that you can't start Dark Shadows with Barnabas coming out of the coffin because it doesn't have the same impact. You can't, the metaphor that I like to use is the pre-Barnabas stuff is the foundations for the house, the rotting foundations, the rotting Gothic foundations, and all the family sins, all the, things that they're burying in the basement, maybe literally or figuratively. And then, Barnabas coming out of the coffin is sort of making all of those things explicit. It's the things that they can't keep locked up anymore. They're walking and talking. The family sins, the Joshua not being able to shoot his own son is coming back to bother us in a very real sense. So I think, anything going forward, a Dark Shadows adaptation that I would want to see is something that really spends some time investing in the core family or the core characters, whoever they may be, before these crazy things come, to mess up their way of life or to really shake up the atmosphere that we've built with the family beforehand.
Right.
I would hope that a new series would pick up with a future generation and not retread ground that's gone before. And in that vein, I'd like to see flashbacks to other periods of time that we haven't experienced yet, maybe the 1920s or the Civil War era, see some different ancestors for a change.
For me, kind of going on what Aleah said, I really enjoy it, and I think Dark Shadows is at its best when the supernatural elements are there to facilitate interpersonal character drama rather than the other way around. It's not about how being a vampire works and it's not like a rock, paper, scissors, like what can be to werewolf and what can be to ghost and what it's about a very personal, Gothic, symbolic, metaphorical, personal issues. And in that vein, what I would really want to see is specifically from a continuation or from a next generation show would be Amy Jennings, and whether Amy has children or not. Is she told that she carries this curse and will pass it on to any children? When is she told? Is she told before she has children? Who tells her? And how does she feel about all of this? And that kind of a very personal family issue that I have not seen a single continuation really explore, whether that's fan fiction or an official licensed project. So that's something that I would be very much looking forward to seeing.
Ding, 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 you're all hired. Before we wrap it up, I selfishly want to introduce my friend Rick, who flew out from Jamestown, North Carolina. He and I met him. I was running home from school to see Dark Shadows, and I met Rick on the way home, and I told him about it. He'd never heard of it, and now he's a huge fan as well. And he turned me on to Famous Monsters of Filmland, and we've been monster kids ever since. Thank you all. Thank